Well, you'll see when you're sitting, but I think...
Could you take out are those sheets current? The sheets behind? Rabbi? I just was...
May 7th.
What's that?
This one, May 7th.
So it's very current.
Well, this one I think is the year...
Parnes
HaShana.
Okay, so whatever.
Yeah?
Yeah. But there's nothing current.
No, so I should put it in? Yeah? Alright, whatever. Might as well.
Yeah, Yaakov just wrote.
Just means
by the way,
Yaakov
just wrote to me. Gotta always delete the entire title that you did before selecting on the option.
Yeah.
Moshe, how are you?
Did he got a haircut?
Try to get my team that. So far today. Yeah. We're burning the 24-hour. We're burning the 24-hour. Party class. Yeah. And then down Larry.
Just said this one is going to be like every time, no?
What time? It's on. It's not enough. Now it's on. Nope. Now it's off. Now it's off.
Oh, so it's on mute. Oh, you put it on mute.
Oh. Yeah. Put it on because I wanted to.
So is this going to be for every Shiur then?
I don't know. I think so. I'm not sure. It's Rabbi. I don't know if that's going to be for every Shiur. Yeah, I know. I'm very confused. I don't know. It's leave it. Yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to be doing it for every Shiur from now until the end.
It's good. It's good to see familiar faces and friends. To start the Nuzman, the Limudim. No matter how many times we would start this limud, we wouldn't even be beginning. But we were zeicher to begin last year, officially, this limud of the Sefer Daas HaSefiros, which is a very, very basic, and I believe a very clear, straightforward introduction to Pnimiyus HaTorah. And we were up to page Nuntes. Probably not everybody has the Sefer. Might be possible to get some more. I don't know. So let me just, I'm not going to review what we've learned until now, but where we're holding at this point. The Sefer is called Daas HaSefiros because it's an introduction to the whole Seder of how Kodesh Baruch Hu runs all worlds, including this world and the world within ourselves as well, according to the 10 spheres. What we were learning in this parak that we were up to before the summer, we were learning that even though each of the spheres is a particular anhaga, it's a way that Hashem runs the world with chesed, with gevura, and so on, how Kodesh Baruch Hu runs the world. But we saw that how the actual anhaga of the world is revealed. The poal, the maisa, comes through what's called the partsufim. That's what we were holding before the summer. The 5 partsufim. The Ramchal explains this in the following way. This is what we had been learning. The Ramchal explains that every sphera is the etzem of that particular anhaga. For instance, chesed. So chesed is the sphere of loving kindness and so on. But how that chesed will be revealed in the world depends upon which partsuf, which is called partsuf or face, which partsuf the chesed, that chesed is revealed through. So, for instance, if the chesed is revealed through the partsuf of the highest partsuf, which is arach anpin. And we spoke about these words, and we're going to talk about them a lot more over the coming months. if the midah of the sphere of chesed is drawn down into the world and is revealed in a person's life, in the world or that person's life, through the partsuf of Arach Anpin, and then there's a tremendous or of loving kindness. For instance, the 13 midos Yud Gimel Midas Arachim. This time of the year now we're going to be all of our davening, all the slichas, all of the avoid is going to be revolving around the Yud Gimel Midas Arachim. Yud Gimel Midas Arachim, the 13 midos Arachim, is a revelation of Hashem's love as it comes into the world through the highest partsuf, which is the partsuf of Arach Anpin, which is a very powerful manifestation of that midah of Hashem's love. But the chesed of Hashem can come through different partsuf. Come through Abba or through Ima. We're going to review a little bit some of the names, just to remind ourselves. And so too when it comes to the hanhag of each person, of what goes on internally inside of us, with the spheres in our lives, it's revealed through these partsufim. We were talking about the partsufim before the summer. We're on page Nuntes, and there's a little bit of a summary, and to familiarize ourselves with the words, with the names. And then what's wonderful about this Sefer is that he brings it down to earth in a very, very simple and understandable way, that we should be able to at least have Hagdama to this Torah of the Arizal. So where it says in the middle of page Nuntes, Sikum Shloshes Chelke HaSefiros Patsufim V'Neshama Shebehem. Just again the names to review. V'yotzim Ken Sheyesh Shloisha Meimadim V'Gilui Hanhagas Hashem Yisrael B'Chol Partsuf. There are three dimensions of how Hashem's Hanhaga is revealed through the Partsufim. Aleph, Sfiras Keser, is through the partsuf of Arach Anpin, Yechida. Yechida is Yechida Shebenefesh. That part of our soul that's called Yechida. Beis Sfiras Chachma is the partsuf of Abba, Chaya. Sfiras Bina is the partsuf of Ima, Neshama. The six spheres, Vav spheres, which are Chesed, Vur, Tiferes, Netzachod, and Yesod. Partsuf of Zer is called Zer Anpin, which is in the Neshama, which is Ruach. And finally, Sfiras Malchus, which is parts of Nukva, which is manifested through the part of the soul that's called Nefesh. So throughout the entire Sefer, we're going to be talking about these words and what they mean, and how the world is affected by all of this, and how we are. Mamar Habayim is Barbas Hashem, Ketzad B'chol Partsuf. In the upcoming Mamar, we're going to learn how each of these partsufim again is like a conglomerate of different spheres. How each of these partsufim yesh kesher v'shlichus banhaga ben shloshes achalakim. We're going to see how in each of the partsufim how they relate to these three manifestations of sphera, the partsuf and the shama shel partsuf. The Anhaga, the sphere, the parts of the Neshama, that's we're going to be learning in the Shem coming up. Now, Arba Miluyim b'Shem Havaya Keneged HaPartzufim. The Shem Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the name of Hashem, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. Each letter of Hashem's name, of course, has a different koach, it's a manifestation of different energy, different koach. And there are also different ways to spell the name of Hashem. Yud Kei Vav Kei. There are different ways to spell the names. Now, Chaluk and the Sefes v'Yesod sheyesh bepartzufim hi ha'hevdel b'tzuras hamiluyim b'shem Havaya. There are different ways to write out the Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, and each one of those different ways is the Gilui, is the revelation of a different partzuf. Dinei Shem Havaya, Mevate es Shorish HaAshpa Shel Hashem Yisbarach Ba'olam. The name Yud Kei Vav Kei, even though Hashem is known by different names, but the Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Shem Havaya Baruch Hu, that is the Shorish of how Hashem is mashpia in the world that we're living in, through the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. V'yesh ba'ashpa zu b'chinos shonos shabos l'dei bitui b'tzuras ha'milui shel oisi Shem Havaya. And the name Yud Kei Vav Kei is mashpia in different ways, depending upon how the Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei is written, is spelled out. So he explains. V'yesh arba miluyim shonim l'shem havaya. There are 4 different ways that the name Yud Kei Vav Kei is spelled. Ve'eluhaim. The first is Yud, Yud Vav Dalet. Hey, Hey Yud. Vav is Vav Yud Vav. And Hey Yud. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Zeh ol gematria shel ayin beis. So when you learn this from, you'll see very often that it will speak about the Shem ayin beis. The Shem ayin beis is this way of spelling Hashem's name: Yud Vav Dal, Hey Yud, Vav Yud Vav, Hey Yud. Zeh ol gematria shel ayin beis, which equals 72. V'zeh mavate is ha'hashpah mi parts of Abba, Chachma, and that is expressing the manifestation or a gilui of the hashpah of the partsuf that's called Abba, which is Chachma. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, which is similar, but you'll see that the Vav is Vav, Aleph, Vav. So that's the gematria Samach Gimel. That equals Samach Gimel. V'hashpah zumi partsuf Ima, Bina. And this is a hashpah through the partsuf of Ima, Bina. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Or here it's spelled, the Hey is spelled Hey Aleph. Vav, Aleph, Vav, Hey Aleph is the gematria Mem, Hey, equals 45. Zu hashpah mi partsuf Zer Anpin. This is the hashpah that comes through the partsuf of Zer Anpin, which means Chesed V'Vort Tiferes Netzach Hod Yisod. Yud, and then Hey, Hey, Vav, Vav, Hey, Hey, is the gematria Ban, Beis Nun, 52. Zemavate hashpah mi partsuf Nukva Malchus. This is a gilui of the partsuf of Nukva of Malchus. Now, again, these are just names now. These are letters and names. But as we're going to continue on, you're going to see how everything in davening and everything in Shabbos and Yontiv and all of the mitzvahs is connected to these names. In order to understand this, use a mashal. When a person is relating to other people, for instance, to his own child, to be mashpia to his child, there are times that the parent is connecting to the child in more of an external, superficial way. For instance, so he's being mashpia, the father's giving to the child. He gives him a few dollars to go buy something to eat. It's also hashpah, but it's a very simple external hashpah. He's giving something some money to buy food. But then there are times when the father or the mother turn to the child, and the hashpah is a deeper hashpah. It's not just a hashpah of giving something to buy. It's a hashpah that's deeper. So the parent is talking to the child about his feelings, her feelings, emotions, and so on. So this creates a chibur. This is a connection that's much deeper than just being mashpia a couple of dollars. And then there's even a higher madrega than that. When the father or the mother is walking around concentrating and thinking. Now the child might not feel that at the moment, might not know about that, but the father's mind, the mother's mind is completely focused on this child. And all the father is thinking about is, how can I strengthen my kesher with my child? What can I do to be closer to my child? Learning together, or just making a stronger kesher between them. So this relationship between a father and the son, between a parent and a child, it changes, it fluctuates. The hashpah, the connection, the kesher. And there's no end to the different levels, the different madregas of depth that can be expressed in that relationship between the father and the son with this hashpah of a parent to a child. And this is a mashal of how Hashem gives to creation. The hashpah of Hashem, of how Hashem is mashpia upon creation. Shorish hashpah suhi b'shem havaya. The tool, the kli, through which Hashem is mashpia in the world is the Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's the kli of hashpah. Aval b'sorich ze yesh milui, but the name Yud Kei Vav Kei has a milui. It can be written in a way that's full. Again, not just the letters Yud Hey Vav Hey, but Yud, Yud Vav Dal, Hey, and the other letters and so on. V'inyan ha-milui moira al hispashtus. And milui, that way that the name Yud Kei Vav Kei is filled, is a simon to us, is a sign to us to help us understand the level of hispashtus, the level of Hashem reaching inward and downward into the world. It's through the milui of the Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. So you always have the father and the child, the mother and the child, and that's a metzius, and the parent is talking to and giving and so on to the child. But there's a milui of that hashpah. There's the depth of the hashpah. The hashpah being something which is fuller and deeper and richer. So when it comes to Hashem's hashpah through the Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, there are differences between levels of hashpah, and that is manifested or revealed through the miluyim of the Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei Baruch Hu. V'yesh suras shonos v'roivdim shonim shel espashtos gilui v'yisbarach ba'olam. The different levels, the different types, different layers of how Hashem's light is mispashet, how it's mispashet in the world, how it descends into the world. And these chilukim are expressed through the differences in the miluyim of the Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. And the higher the gematria, now here there is one exception, which she's going to talk about in a second. The higher the gematria, the higher the number, the higher the gematria, means that the hashpah, the shefa from Hashem, is coming from a higher place. Again, a parent could come from just a place of physically giving, or emotions, or thoughts, and so on. Therefore, the lowest expression of Hashem's hashpah in this world, of Hashem's connecting to the world, the most basic, the most openly revealed and basic level of Hashem's connection to this world, like the parent giving the kid something to eat, the most basic level is miparsuf nukva. It's from that parsuf that's called nukva, in the keva, which is malchus, which is the sefira, which is the main base of that parsuf of nukva is malchus. Zahamilui shel ban, and that's the milui of Beis Nun, of 52. V'yesh gilui now the question of course is that there's a higher one that's 45, but we'll get that in a second. V'zeh hamilui shel ban, Beis Nun. V'yesh gilui nala yosem mipartsu v'zer anpin, shemilui mem hey. Then you go higher. Now it's true that in gematria, mem hey, 45, is lower than Beis Nun, than 52. So that's what's explained in the note. We'll get to the note in a second. There's a higher revelation of the Shem Havaya Baruch Hu. Shem parts of Ima b'milui Samach Gimel, which is Bina, which is Samach Gimel, which equals 63. That milui of Hashem's name. V'agilui hanali yois and parts of Abba shu shorish agilui b'zeh mispar gavo b'yoseh shel hamilui shu ayin beis. Shu ayin beis. Now we're going to talk about, Arachanpin, we're going to talk about, but the first question here is, how is it possible that Nukva, which is Malchus, the name is Yud Hey Vav Hey equals 52, which is higher than the gematria of 45, which is the hashpah that's coming from the partsif of Zer Anpin. Partsif of Zer Anpin is a higher madrega, right? Zer Anpin means Chesed V'Tves, that's how high you side, and that shame of Hashem, which is the Gilui of Zer Anpin, is the gematria of 45. Yud Hey Hey Aleph Vav Hey Aleph, which is 45. So it's lower than the gematria of Malchus, of Nukva. So how is that possible? It's supposed to be increasing, meaning higher madregas. So if you look at footnote test, Afal Pisha Misper Shel Shem Ban, even though the gematria of Beis Nun, which remember that's Malchus, that's Nukva, which is the lowest level of Ashva, is Yoser Mishem Memhei. It's more than Memhei, which is Zer Anpin. So that's strange. So it should be that Malchus should be a lower gematria, that the milui of Malchus should be Memhei, and the milui of Zer Anpin should be Nun Beis. Now this is not enough of an explanation. This is something that requires an entire Sefer, but just a regalachas. Habir b'zeh shebe'emes b'sherish hadvarim spheres hamalchus tis aliyas at-Torah l'roish b'ayla. You know, in the Chodesh we say, Soif Maisa Machshava Tchila, right? Soif Maisa means that the end of the act contains within it the Machshava Tchila. The entire plan, or the highest thought, is revealed through the completion of something. So even though it's true that Zer Anpin, Chesed Gvur Tiferet Netzach Hayim Yesod, that partsuf of Zer Anpin is on a higher madrega, nevertheless, the advantage of Malchus is that in this respect, Malchus connects back to the Machshava Tchila. It connects back to the Machshava Tchila. Now, why doesn't it have the same gematria as the first? That's not for now. But it's a higher madrega in that respect. Even though Malchus is the lowest of spheres, and the partsif of Nukva is the lowest of the partsufim, still it's the carrying out of Hashem's thought, l'maisa, it's the tachlis. Soif maisa, the machshava tchila. Like a circle. The Svarim explained that Keser and Malchus come together. Keser and Malchus, Keser is the highest sphere, and Malchus is the lowest sphere. But the will of the king and the machshava of the king is revealed openly, most openly, through the final act. Saif Ma'is Machshava, the circle comes together. So even though in terms of madregas, Zer Anpin is higher than Malchus, and therefore the gematria should be, of the milui of that name, should be higher, it should be the one that's 52, not 45. Nevertheless, there's a certain advantage that Malchus has, that Malchus is Soif Ma'isa Machshava Tchila, that it's the revelation of the Tachlis. Just like this world is the lowest of all worlds, and compared to the Olam, the higher Olamus of Bri Yitzira, Atzilas Bri Yitzira, this is the lowest world, and this world is, compared to those worlds, is like nothing compared to those higher worlds. But the Tachlis of all creation is this world. Not Bri Yitzira, not Atzilas Bri Yitzira. The Tachlis of creation is Dir B'Tachton, that Hashem should be revealed in the lowest aspect of creation. So even though Malchus on the one hand, and the partsif of Nukva is the lowest of the partsufim and the lowest of the spheres is Malchus, but it contains within it the objective, the goal, the completion of what was intended. And in that respect, it has an advantage over Zer Anpin. And that's what it means when it says in the pasuk, Atara l'roish baila. That means is that the wife is the atara, the crown of her husband. So even though in terms of madregas, the Zachar's madrega is a higher madrega, and the husband's madrega is a higher madrega, And in this world, we see that by the chasna, the kala walks around. The kala walks around the chasna, and the chasna is because of that. Because the chasna is at the center, and the kala is circling the chasna who's at the center. But the pasuk says, "Isha tesoyev gever." The Dakna Mefarshim explain that at the end of time it will be revealed that really the chasna all along was walking around the kala, which means that the Isha, the woman, is the crown of her husband's head. So, even though on the surface it appears that the husband is the one who's the bigger mashpia, and he is the one who traditionally is bringing home the parnas and so on. The ikar hashpah is from the side of the zacher, but the nekeva and that hashpah is the reishis hamachshava, and the wife, the woman, is the atar loish bayla. She's the akeres bayis, and therefore in that respect, she's the objective and the goal of all the hashpah that's taking place in that world of the house. So when the pasuk says, and the way the Mefarshim and Chazal explain it, is that at the end of time, the chassan is going to walk around the kala. In a certain way, means kivyachol, that Hashem is showing that you should know that you are the crown of my head. Not that God forbid Hashem needs us, but His tachlis that He wanted to carry out in this world can only be carried out through us. So we're the crown of Hashem's head. It means that the crown, which is the highest madrega, is very deeply connected to the sofa madregas, to the lowest madrega. So in that respect, the partzif of nukva, of the female of malchus, is higher than chesed v'tiferes nesach and hoy, is higher than the male hashpos of zer anpin. Zer anpin is the zacher, malchus is the nekeva. But as we're going to learn very soon, next page, that mashpia, makabel, mashpia, makabel, mashpia, these are roles that are constantly changing and moving and fluctuating. We'll talk a lot about that. So even though in terms of the madrega itself, Zeir Anpin is a higher madrega than Malchus, but the tachlis, the objective, is revealed dafka through Malchus. As Isha is a teres bailam, that the wife is the crown of her husband. We see this with everything on Shabbos. Everything on Shabbos is Shabbos Malchus is the queen. Everything on Shabbos is L'kras Kala. L'chodoid L'kras Kala. Shabbos the Kabbalah. And all of Shabbos and understanding what Shabbos is depends upon having an understanding of this interplay of the Pratsufim, of Zer Anpin and Malchus, which is L'shem Yichu Kutshabichu U'Shchinte. So, Zocher and Nekeva. So, Shabbos is Shabbos Malchus. It's the Indian of that feminine quality of Shabbos, which is why we say Eshes Chal by Kiddush. The whole Indian of saying Eshes Chal is because of this. So the tachlis of Seif, that's in L'chadoidi, Seif Ma'aseh Machshava Tchila, L'chadoidi L'kras Kala Pnei Shabbos Nekabel. The L'chadoidi L'kras Kala. In other words, the Zachar is going to the Kala. L'chadoidi L'kras Kala Pnei Shabbos Nekabel. And we're Mekabel Shabbos. There's no such thing as Kabbalah's Yontiv. There's Kabbalah's Shabbos. And Kabbalah's Pnei Kala. L'chadoidi L'kras Kala. So all of this is really in the davening. All the Shabbos davening is what we're talking about. How this all works, we have a lot to learn. But that's in that way, the nukva malchus in that respect is higher. Is higher in that respect. Doesn't mean in its essence, in its Pnimiyus, because it receives, but it's the tachlis. It's the tachlis.
What happened to Sefiros Kesser?
Yeah, that's what I said a minute ago. We're going to come to that, how it works with the Miluim with the Kesser. We'll talk about that. Yeah, what happened to Arachan? Yeah, so he says, we'll talk about it. He said, "Neshi tachlis hakol but tomun soifa ma'aseh shel machshava tchila l'chein shem ban hu shel Sefiros malchus. Shem ban is shel Sefiros malchus." Yeah, so we have to understand more. Why is it that when it comes to the Miluyim, that it seems that Arach Anpin is not part of this Ma'aracha, this system of the Miluyim of the Shemus. We'll see that. We'll talk about that. Back in the text. Gilui Nala Oid Yoiser Shulmi parts of Ima Milui Sama. Gimel, we already read that. Okay. Divi Hagra al Bitui HaPratzufim B'Kaimis Ha'adam. Now, Oid Kosav Hagra, the bottom of the page. The Vilna Gaon writes, B'Tikkun Zohar, in his commentary on the Tikkun Zohar, Yesod Nichbad Shivur Ba'achava B'Hemshach D'Vareinu. A very important Yesod that we're going to be talking a lot about. Shechameshes HaPratzufim, that these 5 Pratzufim that we've been talking about, B'Seder Shal Milamala Lamata, from above to below, Hem Keneged, they correspond in Hem Keneged Rotzen, will, Machshava, thought, Shiur is, I don't know how to translate things, everyone knows what it is, a certain feeling, Kol, sound, and Dibur, and speech. That through the parts of Aruch Anpin, through the parts of Aruch Anpin, the highest midah that Hashem has revealed in this world, which is called Ratzon, which is the crown, Hashem's desire, Hashem's will. That is the parts of Aruch Anpin. That's Ratzon Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, for instance, you'll see in Chazal in many places. So when Moshe Rabbi Akiva wanted to understand what happened to Rabbi Akiva, when he saw the Rabbi Akiva, he saw in the future Rabbi Akiva was such a tzaddik that they're selling Rabbi Akiva's flesh in the marketplace. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, he asked Hashem, is that the reward for what he did? And the answer is, Shtaik, be silent. Kach Allah machshava lefanai. It's Kach Allah machshava lefanai. You can't ask any questions. It's Kach Allah machshava lefanai. This is my will. This is something that's Allah b'machshava. And you can't ask any kashas. It's my will. You can't ask a kasha on why do you want that. It's something that Hashem wants that we don't understand. But Kach Allah machshava lefanai. All of creation is in such a way, really, we don't understand. But that highest parts of which is Aruch Anpin is the parts of through which Hashem's Ratzon is revealed. But parts of Abba, through the parts of Abba, Mizgal HaMachshava Shlo, Hashem's thought. The parts of Ima, Mizgal HaHirur, and feeling or emotion. For parts of Zeir Anpin, Chesed Gvut Tefes Netzach Heidi side, is Kol, voice, sound. The parts of Nukva, the Nekeva, Malchus, is Dibur, speaking. Mavur Mizeh Sheyesh Oimek Shel Yachas V'Anhagel L'Chol Parts of Keneged Chelik Echad B'Nefesh Adam, that there is a certain aspect of the Nefesh Adam that corresponds to each of the Pratzufim that we're going to be talking a lot about. Yesod Gadol, Sheyesh Lo Daas B'Li Mechach Mezu. Again, all that we're learning now, I know it could be a little bit frustrating because a lot of words and terms, and it's hard to understand. These are all like just very prokim names, words that the rest of the Sefer is going to be talking about much more in a beferish way. Yesod Gadol, Sheyesh Lo Daas B'Li Mechach Mezu. A very big yesod in learning this chachma. Hu Teres HaErchin, or Arachin, which I guess could be translated as relativity. Hainu. Shetzarech l'das b'chol parts of a sphere. I was actually just talking about this a minute ago, that we need to know that in every single parts of and sphere, whenever we're talking about partsufim and spheres, there's the actual sphere, and then how that sphere is revealed in the world through the parts of. We need to know that whenever we're talking about a sphere or a partsuf, are we talking about that relative to a higher partsuf and sphere or relative to a lower partsuf and sphere? What does that mean? Just like with people. So just like in a family, there's a grandfather, Shehu Sheresh HaShoshelas, and the grandfather is alive, and the grandfather is the Sheresh, is is at the top of that chain. He's the shorish of that family. The grandparents are the shorish of the family. V'akol mimenu, and all of the children and the grandchildren, whatever, great-grandchildren, they're all coming from those people, the Saba and the Savta. V'akol mimenu, v'uzeh shemar upanim sochakos l'nachadim, and therefore the grandfather smiles and talks to the children, to the grandchildren, umashpi alem hamoin rachamim v'chesed, and through his love, the grandparent is mashpia, all kinds of rachamim and chesed. It comes down from the highest place, from the shorish of the family that's in the world right now. Kach gam ken b'moshel makbil hazeh, parts of arach anpin, so too, in using the partzufim. Parts of Arach Anpin, Shu Shorish Hashpa. Arach Anpin is the Shorish, is like the Zaidi, the Babi. Shorish Hashpa, V'chol Mahuso, Hi Hashpa, Sharach Memechesed. And the whole Mahus of Arach Anpin is Rotzen, is love, is Hashpa of Rotzen, and to give, and so on. V'charkach Yesh Es Ishta. And, okay, I was talking about the grandfather, using the muscle of the grandfather and the grandmother. The wife, she is Zusha Megadelis as a Yeladim is a makbil b'mashal of parts of Bina. She bebchinas aim habanim kemuva bazar, which corresponds to Bina, which is Megadelis as a Yeladim. He's skipping over. It's not clear. He went from Arachanp and he skipped Chachma and went straight to Bina, but he's using just as a marshal. She is Zusha Megadelis as Yeladim. She's the one that's more metapel, actually taking care of the family and so on practically. There's a makbil marshal parts of Bina. She b'chinas aim haban, the mother of the children, can move over bazar. And she movila es hanhagis hatachton letikun. She, the grandmother, and then the mother of the children, is the one that's more involved in the practical hanhaga, the tikkun of the family. Yesh gamken is benoshel shel asaba shu abba le'yeladim. So he says that. So here's where he brings Abba in. So he says the grandfather he's using for the marshal of Arach Anpin. That's the grandfather. So the ikk of the grandfather is the warmth, the smile, and so on. Then he's saying that Ima he's using as the grandmother. It's a little bit Moshe's not so clear. But he's saying that the Hanhoga, okay, that's the Yeshgamkim Benoshel Asaba, Shu Abel Yeladim, the father of the children, will makbil b'moshel the parts of. It says he writes here Zayin Aleph and Zayin Anpin, which really should be Chachma v'chein Hala. So it's not so clear how he's identifying the members of the family with the marshal, with the nimshal. But I think we get the message. We understand what it means. So, but the main point right now is this: that when we want to understand the hashpa, lahagdir as hashpa as ha'ima. Ha'im hi bebchinas makabel, kevin she makabel as kol hashpa mibayla. This goes back to what we were talking about a moment ago with the nekeva. So on the one hand, the ima, the mother, the nekeva, she's receiving herself as kol hashpa mibayla. She's receiving the hashpa from her husband. She doesn't have anything on her own. She herself is a kli that receives the hashpa from her husband. So on the one hand, the nekeva, don't get mixed up with the grandparent thing. On the one hand, the nekeva is a mekabelis. She receives the hashpa. She's waiting, again, traditionally, she's waiting for her husband to come home with a paycheck. And now she's receiving from her husband. She's mekabelis from her husband. But then on the other hand, but now that she's received from her husband, she herself becomes a mashpia to take care of the kids. So she will now go shopping, she'll prepare the meal and so on. So she is mashpia. She's first. So sometimes the nekeva is in the role of mekabel, in the role of being mekabel, and sometimes the nekeva is in the role of being mashpia. And so there's all of this fierce in the Partzuf. So now she becomes the hashpah, and those that are beneath her, the children, become those who receive the hashpah from her. And then when the children give her nachas, right? So then she's makabel from the kids. So the kid comes home with a great report card. The mother, until now, she had a very bad day. Things didn't go well, whatever, and she wasn't in a good mood. And then the kid comes home with a great report card, and the mother is lifted up by the child. So now a strange reversal of roles has taken place. Until now, the kid was the makabel, and the mother was the mashpia. The mother was giving the kid his lunch. The mother gave him a kiss. The mother gave him encouragement to go to school. And the kid goes off to school, and she had a horrible day. The kid comes home and shows the mother a fantastic report card. He got 100 in his test. And now the mother is makabel achiyas from the kid. So now the roles are reversed, and the child becomes a mashpia, and the mother becomes a makabel. And this constantly changing. Depending upon the role of that sphere at that moment in time, it could be either mashpia, it could be makabel. And it always depends upon what's the particular inyan. B'yachas l'bayla, he b'bchinis makabel. Vis-a-vis her husband, she's a makabel. And again, sometimes she's mashpia to her husband as well. But she's a makabel. B'yachas li'yiladim, but vis-a-vis her kids, she now has a different role. Her role is to be mashpia. The gam can be midas malchus. This is what I was talking about before. With the midah of malchus. She hamakabelah says kol hashpa min hasefir shmei aleh. Malchus is the receptacle of all of the hashpa, of all of the or, of all of the light from the higher spheres. So in that respect, malchus is the kli kibul. It's the makabel of all the higher spheres. And then the job of malchus is to distribute all that she received from the higher spheres to us, to this world. Rain and parnasa, everything comes through that kli of malchus. B'yachas l'spheres me'aleh, l'parts of zeir anpin, he b'chinis makabel. So malchus, vis-a-vis the higher spheres, malchus receives all of the or, all the hashpa, all the shefa that comes from Hashem's ratzon and Hashem's machshava, and all of that hashpa through the higher partzufim and spheres all comes to malchus. And therefore, malchus is always described in a way of the leis lam gamar klum. She has nothing of her own. It's like David HaMelech. David HaMelech is malchus. David HaMelech says, "Vayisi shofel be'enai." The midah of malchus is humility, anava, and like the moon has nothing of its own, just it receives from the sun. And so too, then a kaver receives, malchus receives everything from the higher spheres. All the shefa comes down through malchus. But now malchus becomes now the distribution center of how that or is now going to be divided and distributed to all that exists in this world. Again, this also is in the higher worlds, because you have malchus in Yitzira and Bria and so on. This in each of the worlds. But as far as all of creation is concerned, and all that exists, malchus is the hashpah comes to malchus. And malchus is the hashpah that we receive. All the hashpah in this lower world comes from the midas malchus. She's sherish hashpah, which is the root of hashpah of all lower existence. The fi yisod zeh, based upon this very important yisod, sarach lodun biyachas the whole parts of a sphere b'fnei atzma. One always has to try to understand, when you're learning about a sphere or a parts of, we need to know, again, this relativity. What are we discussing in relation to what is this sphere now operating? In relation to a higher sphere, in which case it's receiving, or in relation to a lower world, or to a lower sphere, in which case it's giving. is mashpia. L'chen afilu parts of keser. Therefore, even the parts of keser, of arachanpin, sheshorish hashpa, which is the shorish of hashpa, yesh gam ken yachas shel mashpia makabel. There's also within arachanpin itself. There's also an inyan of malchus shah. Remember of samach, what the of samach malchus. In other words, even it's malchus. Even in keser itself, even in arachanpin itself, there's a bechina. There's an aspect of malchus. In arachanpin, there's a bechina of malchus. Remember, in all of the partsufim, we have the subdivisions into the different partsufim and the different spheres. So even to different spheres. So even in arachanpin, there's a bechina of malchus. There's the lower aspect. The lowest aspect of arachanpin is called the malchus of arachanpin. So there as well, or the nukva, the malchus of arachanpin, and there also is a makabel. And there's an inyan of makabel and hashpa. Mugda b'chinis makabel v'shorish hagvura v'anukva, which is the shorish hagvura nukva in all lower worlds. Okay, that was really the hardest part of the Sefer so far. The rest of it is going to be, the rest of the Sefer is essentially going to be explaining all that we've been learning until now. So hopefully you're still bearing with us, and it's going to be explaining in a much more pashut way and much more negayah to avodas hanefesh, all the seder of how the different chilukim of the neshama and the spheres, and how the spheres are different levels and types of avodah for the niche of our lives. So Misham will continue that next week.
And we have it recorded for any review. It'll be posted.
On record. Okay. Yeah.
Why does he have to come on to that last piece of the malchus in the Marachas and Kesser that's the Makabel?